Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Energy Unleashed with Suzanne and Kim. Hey, girl.
Hey everybody. Hello, Suzanne.
I am staring at you, and we're both home from the cabin. We've been hanging out for the last week.
I know,
And now
off
we're
and
back
on.
in our homes going, oh, which is fine. I love that some of the people that talk to us on our comments and such always are saying the cabin, because it's such a big deal for us. It's just such a amazing opportunity to not only be friends for working and socializing, but to have it at the cabin is just I think such a joy and such a treat. And this was a bigger weekend where we got to hang out more and do more stuff. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's kind of a bummer to be home, isn't
It
it?
is. And I just, because I am so, Brad and I were talking about it on the way home, how the friends that we've made at the cabin already for the short time that we've been in our cabin is just
Right,
really amazing.
right,
So
right.
it just makes everything so much more special going up there,
And and I
spending time
think
with family.
I think everybody needs a cabin, not meaning needs a cabin, but I think everyone needs a place or a space where they can unwind like that. And God forbid, not everyone is fortunate enough to have one to own. I mean, ours we bought a million years ago. Um, but at least find a spot or a space or make the time to find that space because I think right now our bodies, in fact, that's what I want to bring up today. And I
Mhm.
didn't really prompt Kim on any of this. I think it's the time of year here is difficult. We've got a lot going on in the summer. People are running around. We're doing a million things. But I think politically right now, everything's crazy. Energetically, things are off the charts. So I just kind of wanted to talk about what it feels like to be a human.
I
Look
want
at
to know. I want to know what it feels like again. I don't know what it is now to like I feel like the oldest lady in the world lately. Seriously.
Yeah. And I think I would like to just throw this out here and let it stick for anybody in any regard. And please feel free to put some comments on because I think a lot of people are really struggling right now with their
Yeah.
humanness. I believe that we are so incredibly powerful, these divine vehicles, and yet lately it feels so vulnerable and fragile to be a human.
Hmm.
And that is such a quandary in my brain when I follow oh, I feel really powerful. However, I can barely move through the room today. Or I'm really fighting through these wonderful, powerful things, and yet do I really feel vulnerable? I mean, that isn't it a dichotomy? Isn't that the word? I mean, that just, fighting opposing things is so difficult right now for a human.
Hmm.
I mean,
I it is, and this is where I go to look at the Schumann resonance or something, because I'm like, there is something going on that is creating, like I told you on Saturday, I'm like, I am vibrating. Like my legs and body, and I was trying to put, I was making an appetizer and I was trying to put it together, and I'm like, like, what is happening in my body right now?
and I
And
think that was super interesting because you texted me on that, and then we saw each other later at the gathering, and you
yeah,
said the same thing. Now, me, I rely on you for the Schumann resonance information because A, I can't read the stupid chart and I never know what it says, so I just call you. But for whatever reason, your body really gets more affected by the Schumann, and
hmm,
my body gets more affected. Well, it's because our differences, and my body is more affected by the solar flare. So
yeah.
when there's the electrical stuff happening, that's when my body feels good, 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 good. But I think it's so interesting that for the first time you felt the gig, 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 almost electrical current from
Oh my God.
Schumann.
It was, I've never had it that bad before. Like I could always like feel it because it was off, a little different, a little more electrical, but this was, and in fact, my daughter had similar symptoms
Hmm.
and she doesn't, and that's why we looked up the Schumann. I'm like, something is going on.
How big was
Um,
the Schumann?
It was sporadic. They were talking about how it has lightened the veil even more, that it got up to like 74, but then it would drop back down and then it would get really high again. It was
Interesting.
all over the board. And somebody actually, because I follow several different sites on Instagram,
Yeah.
and one of them said, it's like Mother Earth is just throwing up all this energy, like it just was really, but they were talking about how we're getting downloads, that we're changing, our bodies are changing from the crystal perspective.
Hmm?
Um, to be able to take on more. And so the symptoms were very much you're vibrating, you're irritated, a little irritated, you're just not feeling like you're in yourself, like brain fog, all the
Yep.
things like normal
It feels very
essentially,
menopausal, let's just say.
right?
Yeah.
It's so funny how those symptoms are similar, but that you need to hydrate,
Hmm.
and ground. And I was walking around barefoot a lot this weekend with
Yeah.
my ankle the way it is and trying to just level it out because it was really all over the board for me.
That is so interesting. And yet, I, on my phone, follow the NASA solar flare stuff. And the flares were maybe minors and mediums. And so there was not much solar activity. But I think, in my opinion, what's happening is there has been so much solar, and the Earth itself is doing so much activation. It is, cracking open its ley lines, it's activating its ancient sites, it's doing so much work. I was listening to a fascinating podcast on the drive home about Giza. There's so much happening in Giza right now under the pyramids and the activation of what's happening under the original stargates, etc. So I think the Earth itself is like, holy shit. It's just like, what the, and that affects your body so much more because you're so much maternal and earth-based than mine. And I think the solar flares are doing their job. But like you said, this is coming through so much more that it's pummeling this even more. So a
Yeah.
lot of the people standing on this planet that aren't aware of this stuff, that feels like you're standing in a puddle with your finger inserted into the,
Electrical outlet, like
yeah, right? And it's important for us to know that this is real stuff because I I know what happens to most of us is like, oh my God, something's wrong with me.
yeah.
And this is a really critical thing that I find with clients, myself included, by the way, because we immediately think something's wrong with us.
Mhm.
And indeed, it can, what do I want to say? It can, dis-ease can become disease. We all know that.
Mhm.
But even dis-ease and stress and mental rumination about it can make things more than they really are in our body. And I think that's what I want to throw into this conversation and unleash a little is that we create our madness. And so knowing information is important. Knowing that we're talking about this is happening to our bodies, so it's probably happening to yours is important so that we don't sit here and think, oh my God, I've got this, that, and the other thing, and the doctors just haven't found it yet. Because then we'll manifest that, right?
Great. And this is how my head would go there. Like, oh my God, you have arthritis. You have
Hmm.
something really wrong with you. Are you going to have a heart attack? And then all of a sudden I would step back and be like, this is not, no, I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
I'm just, whatever is happening right now is affecting me. But I was a roller coaster of that all
Yes.
weekend.
And in fact, I would like to really point out that the exhaustion of the human body riding that roller coaster is very real.
Hmm.
So we are tired because think about it. If you were a piece of coal and you were in a rock tumbler to turn into a diamond, right? That's what's happening to our insides going from carbon to crystalline. We're a rock tumbler situation in some regards right now, having these and this is not obviously, this is difficult for people that don't study this possibly, in that we aren't sitting there with coal inside of our body turning to crystal and
Yeah.
diamond. It's in our energetic templates, it's in our blueprints, it's in our fields, but it is there. This is a change that is happening in terms of the instruction set. So the instructions are colliding and changing and tumbling and that in and of itself is exhausting. So this is a really, really important time, I believe, for people to remember the ascension process. And I am fortunate enough, I'm landing the plane on my third book, and I was really working hard at the cabin, yay. And, 90% there, it's going to edit this week. So when I'm writing about my journey in the last 10 years doing cosmic grid work, and on how important it is that this time period is understood. I
Mhm.
mean, we're in a time period that has never happened before. We are in a situation where bodies and a human meat and bone and organ and muscles and everything else that we're walking around in that we think is us is getting its ass kicked because it's in an evolution that we've never done before. This is a transmutation that's never happened before. And we're a bunch of guinea pigs in some regard, and it's difficult.
So can I ask this? Because it feels like, I mean, we never have really known the timetable around this stuff, right? Or
Right.
when
Well, we're
things are going to
creating the
happen.
timetable every second. Yeah.
Right. So we're the co-creators. Like it's a good point that I wasn't thinking in that mind space, but that um we are guinea pigs in this. Like they don't
Totally.
know, like you've even asked questions or channeled things that it's like, yeah, we've never done this before.
Yeah.
Like just
Which is such a
hang in
hard thing.
there.
This is another vulnerability of being the human. And this is actually, I wrote about this and that we, one of the things I worked on as a grid worker for many, many years is the Savior program. It's an implant in the whole system of the hologram that says something or someone is going to save you. It's the whole, Christ story totally manipulated.
Mhm.
It's the government story, it's the medicine story, it's the money story. We're going to save you, we're going to save you. So it's very much about us giving our power away. And we even give our power away to the God source in terms of, or angels, or
Mhm.
galactics, or can't you fix this? And it's like, yeah, but we are it. We are the ones that are fixing it. It's a really hard mind space to understand that we are creating something that's never happened before. Therefore, there isn't a savior thing out there that's going to fix it.
Right. So when me sitting here, because I had a really tough weekend with all of this, how, like, give examples so that other people understand what are the kinds of things that we can do to calm this down
Hmm.
and put our headspace in a better place for the creativity
Hmm.
around this. Because I think
Well,
we get so
yeah,
wrapped up in what the issues are. I know I have been lately, that I have not focused on what the creative, meditative things that I can do
sure.
to change
Well,
this.
let's just even use our humanity for the last week as coworkers, friends, etc. We went through a celebration of life at our cabin for our neighbor that, basically fell out of his chair and died right on the floor of his own home.
Mhm.
That's that's sad. We miss him. Yeah, it's horrible, but it is what it is in terms of our bodies do move forward, right? So that
Mhm.
was interesting and difficult and hard. We're both struggling with some physical things that we are seeing, maybe a modality, a person, a practitioner that is new for us. It's shaking up things. It's an electric kind of like removing scar tissue. But what we were discussing over the campfire was like, what is this actually doing to our body? It's almost like shaking again, like the rock tumbler, it's shaking out crap of our body. So we've got the emotions of, the funeral or the service. We've got our body shaking up and unearthing new things. We are coming home because you have, personal things like a shower and a wedding, which is really great, but it's also like, oh my God, now I have to get the house clean. I have to. And I'm doing the same thing. Oh my goodness, we have so many projects at the cabin. So we throw all these things together, and this is the so-called human experience. And we go right back into the 3D world of I can't freaking walk because I'm so tired and I'm trying to push the lawnmower and I can't even move anymore. Those are the times when our head gets crazy.
Mhm.
And it's justified and it's okay because we're being human. That said, it isn't okay. We want to stop the madness periodically, slow down and go stare at the lake or go stare at the sky or go stare at a tree and say, I'm also really, really vulnerable and fragile
Mhm.
being in this human state of mind and emotion, but I'm not. I'm an incredible divine vehicle that's in a process of something that is so freaking big that's never happened before on this planet. What the heck? And find that those are so completely different and find that synergy between the two of being just present for the moment, taking the breath, coming back, really realizing my true feel center says, yeah, I feel like I'm dying, but I really know I'm not. Or I feel like this could be RA or arthritis, but that's part of aging. And how do I feel right now at this, Crohn's stage of life? And what does that mean in glory and wisdom? And all these things have to be looked at and presented, first of all, presented, allowed to come out. Second of all, looked at like with honesty and then sitting with it before your mind gets into monkey mode. And
Mhm.
then really being responsible as a human being to validate I am not fragile. I may be fragile in this very moment, but we are an incredible process of changing and transmuting and transforming that's never been done before. How can we call ourselves fragile?
Mm. It's so big. So
Right?
Yeah, it is. But it all makes sense that it is a mindset.
Oh my
Sure.
God, 100%. A
That I
100%.
really struggle keeping that mindset in a more positive place. And my daughter pinged me several times over the weekend because
Yeah.
I'm hobbling around like a little old lady. I was like, what is going on? It's
Well,
like,
and I think
Mom,
to know
you're
that the
fine.
human body itself is hurting and changing, this is ultimately, let's go back to our friend, this is ultimately we're scared of death. And yet here we sat at a celebration of death when if we look at this in a perspective of this is normal, why are we scared? We'll all die when we're supposed to. I
Hmm.
mean, it's silliness that we put ourselves in these tailspins,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But it's very, very, very typical of the human until we break the madness. And the only way to break the madness is A, observe it, find neutral, and then be the neutral part, be the co-creator again, be the one that is really looking at the true feelings. Of course we're scared of death, but am I scared of dying tomorrow? No, just because my ankle hurts doesn't mean I'm going in the ground. It's all perspective.
It is perspective. I'm so glad we're having this conversation right now because it has been. It was really hard for me to stick with, to be neutral in
Hmm.
some places. That because I do think the symptoms, I was very irritated at certain points of and trying to calm all of this down. In that,
But on the other hand, Kim, you're not calming it down because you're actually shaking it up. So we have to calm down knowing we're shaking up. This is everything in our whole entire reality is polarity and duality. So we are literally shaking things up by doing modalities of, massage, cranial, fascia release, all of that stuff to get the shit out of our body. That is crappy programming, right? It's old trauma. It's old things that are hurting us. And then we unearth in the human form, holy crap, this is what happened now because all that shit's been in there. I've
right.
actually diseased it so much to the point of blah, blah, right? Now we're dealing with that, like, oh my goodness. And then we go through, myself included, why didn't I know better? Oh my God, I do this for a living. What is wrong with me? Why didn't I catch this? How did I not know this? Why do I not know I'm still running that narrative? What is wrong with me that I didn't catch this before it did that? We have this tendency to now bash ourselves. These are cycles and programs that the human go through because we're still, no matter how much work we do on this stuff, programmed to some extent. And by the way, we will always get triggered because we're in the collective. So I can be as clean as can be on my programs and my narratives, and I can get my ass kicked in 2.5 seconds because
Yeah.
it flew through the collective, right?
Hmm.
So these are things, in my opinion, that we almost have to have a little bit of sense of humor with, and that, oh my God, seriously, you know, we did that
It
again.
was hard as an empath to go to that celebration of life for sure.
Yeah.
I had to go home and really like, because there was a lot of emotions rolling around that place for sure.
And again, I'm not cold and hard and different, but I grew up with all of that. So for me, it was like, oh, this is normal. I don't empath that sadness. In fact, it confuses me.
Mhm.
So I actually find myself pulling differently and looking at it like from the outside looking in. As I was writing a lot, because the book is literally about my journey, I was writing a lot. I was realizing my entire life, there's a lot of times where I'm on the outside looking in, going, I'm right there in the midst of everything, but I feel like I'm outside some like snow globe on the
Yeah.
outside going, what, why do they all have snow? Because they're in there. What is that? So I don't necessarily empath that. That said, my empathing was different around my own family when I'm at the cabin. Sometimes it's that lineage thing of, oh, I used to be the one with my kids. Now my kids are there with their kids. And so it's that progression of humanness. And I think this is a huge thing I'm seeing in clients of that human progression of, oh my God, I'm getting to the last part of my life. And this is
Mhm.
happening for so many people. I think it hits women as much as men, but I think women articulate it, feel it, embrace it, move through it differently. Men, it's smushed inside of them somewhere and comes out almost sideways as concerned or nasty or controlling in different ways that are sporadic. I've been watching it a lot. So
Mm.
that's a hard process that I'm actually keeping an eye on too, not only for myself, but clients as well. It's difficult.
Well, I think you just pointed at something I wasn't thinking about. I was, but I wasn't. That my daughter and son-in-law did a lot for us this weekend
Yeah.
and took care of things that I would normally do.
Yeah.
And that was definitely unsettling because
Yes.
it's like I physically am having a hard time doing that. And
And what we don't want to do, if we choose, what we don't want to do is create the dis-ease and the disease enough that says, I can't mow the lawn because blah, blah, blah. As
Mhm,
much as, hey, honey, would you mow the lawn for me today?
mhm,
Or honey even knows that she or he will just mow the lawn.
right.
It's a evolution of passing a torch of sorts because I get to, not because I've created a situation where I have to,
Mhm.
and having the courage to speak up without the attachment to the dis-ease. And that's really something that is hard for people as we're in family structures or friend structures where we're evolving into a space and a place where things are more difficult.
I know. It is.
Yeah.
It really is. It's emotional, man.
It
Whew.
is emotional. It's very
Yeah.
emotional. And then on the very flip side, you personally have a situation where you're bringing new life into the family and babies, and that's all exciting. But then it's like, oh my God, my babies are having babies, and that's really crazy because now, wow, I'm the grandma. And that starts to just go, oh, and then my mom and dad are still alive in their elderly state. And we get these sandwich smushes
Mhm.
of really beautiful, awesome things. And at the same time, that triggers the crap out of my body going, I just don't want to not be mobile if they're coming, that kind of a thing.
Right.
So
Right.
it's
Yeah, I really want to be
stress.
mobile. I think that's the biggest thing in all of this is um the times that I didn't make decisions to be as mobile as I could be. Um, Now I'm really struggling physically to be that mobile. And it's like, and that's where the blame, shame, all the things come up. And it's pulling myself back out, neutral. We're fine. It's going to be great. We're good.
Yep.
Keep moving.
Yep.
Just keep doing your thing.
Yep.
So it's a really good point in all of this for
Boy,
sure.
that guilt thing comes in really fast though, doesn't it? And then especially I think when we're in the guilt wagon, we forget to stay on the spiritual path because it goes back into that 3D humanity. I'm fragile, I'm losing it, I'm a mess, I'm this, I'm that. And then you're like, "Oh, yeah, but I'm in a transition of an ascension process that's never happened before in a planetary existence." You know what?
Well, and this
That's
is
like,
really, yeah, it is, but it's a really good point because there were points in time when I started reading what was really going on around,
yeah.
Mother Earth and, the astro. There was actually auroras not too far from where we were and different things going on all over, right? Like, but I'm like, am I in such a place in my 3D world that I'm missing out? Am I
Yeah.
missing out? Like it's FOMO. I'm like, am I missing out on the healing that really could be taking like better place right now? Because
Yeah.
my mindset wasn't in the right place. My heart wasn't in the right place.
Well, and again, I think we do. I know myself and another peer friend of ours oftentimes are like, we do so much cosmic work that when our body gets its butt kicked, we're like, like,
Mhm,
don't you, why aren't you taking care of us? And again, savior program, really, Suzanne, that's not what this is. So
mhm,
remember when the situation out here, cosmic and earth, is so drastically changing and in such a kaleidic spin factor. It's like a kaleidoscope, right? Colliding, colliding, colliding. Smashing timelines, opening timelines, colliding timelines. I mean, this is insanity.
mhm.
And if we really think of the craziness of it, there maybe wants to come forward a little bit of honor and awe that Mother Earth is doing this. This is amazing, and we're here to
Yeah.
support it. And instead, all we do is bitch about
I
it.
know, because I was reading really good things about the 7-7 portal, and I was like, oh, I forgot about the 7-7 portal because I'm not in that
Oh,
mind space.
totally.
All the wonderful things that you can release during the 7-7 portal,
Yep.
on this.
Yep. Yep.
And now we're going into Lionsgate.
Yeah.
So for me, I I am going to figure out and work on what I want things to really look like
Hmm.
because I have not been in that headspace lately at all. So,
Right, right. And these are the moments that we can control.
mhm,
These are the things. I'm going to spin in one last little thing that I think is super important also, and that a lot of people went crazy this last week and weekend over political things. A, because of the big so-called beautiful bill, and then B, because of Fourth of July itself. And
mhm,
a lot of people was hearing from that I don't even want to do Fourth of July this year. I don't even want to be American. And then the other ones are screaming, we have to be American. And it's all that polarization again there. It's just all so none of this is going to change for a while. None of this chaoticness is going to change for a while. And to allow your body to change emotional states because you're so sucked into the propaganda and the news and the spin factor is really only detrimental to yourself and those surrounding you. It's not that we're ignorant, it's not that we're stupid, it's not that we maybe don't want to look in things and educate ourselves, but to drag yourself into that doom and gloom or that fight or flight is only really putting fuel on the fire of all of the negativity. And really be aware that if you are co-creating what you really want, especially through Lionsgate is so strong, this is the time to find neutral. It is the time to understand that the chaos is real, yes, because it needs to be real. It needs to make people angry. It needs to make people wake up and fight for what they don't want, but you can't do it in a fight
No,
or
no.
form.
And
It's just,
also a big part of that is the judgmental piece.
oh my
It's
gosh.
over the top with
Yes.
judgmental and just anger over what other people think. We have we're free, this is part of our freedom,
Yeah.
of sovereignty of we are able to go where we want to go. And the judgment
And
is
understand that you're free in the moment when you're tapping in. You are 100% free. It doesn't matter what's floating around you right now. And people will argue this till the cows come home. But, yeah, but. Well, there isn't a yeah, but. Because oftentimes when we do these and when I work on people, I say, there's a door over there that leads upstairs to the rest of my home. And is there really anything behind it if I open it or not? Because like the reality is my only reality is right here, what's in front of my face. Why are we screaming and worrying and judging and yelling and having angst over everything that we don't really know is behind the door or not? We
Yep.
think we know what's behind the door, but we don't. I mean, we learned that in 2020. Everything can change in 36 hours. So it's important, in my opinion, to know that these bodies feel very vulnerable and fragile because of a lot of that programming.
Right.
And it's important for us to understand these bodies are part of the program. We're creating the program and be
Hmm.
aware of that and be in terms of your own sovereignty and freedom with presence if you choose to, because it's the only thing that's going to get you through.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot to be human right now.
it's not going to slow down.
No, it's a little bit crazy and it's a little bit, but hey, like I said, I think the best place to get back to is the awe of this has never happened before and I chose to be here. I think that in and of itself, that concept can really kind of paradigm shift everything. There's nothing about me that got forced in a soul perspective to jump into this human form. I chose.
Right. Right. And it's important to find joy in, even for me, because I'm rolling into that 3D stuff with our celebration this weekend and the baby's coming and all the things, to find the joy in doing some of the things we're doing because
Hmm.
this is who we are.
Hmm.
And not feel bad about not being full, so focused on
Right. Like, oh
here
my
to
God, I don't have the right towels in the bathroom. That is
yeah,
so ridiculous because 9 out of 10, if 20 out of 10, people wouldn't notice, and we don't get that.
yeah,
It's bullshit. We do that to ourselves, and it's silly. And even if they did notice, that has nothing to do with my worth. I mean, it's
no,
just stupid
no,
stuff
that's
that
the
we're
point.
driving ourselves crazy over.
Right.
So, yeah, enjoy it.
Ah, for sure.
Well, I'll be there to kick your butt anyway.
Yeah,
So.
you will. Knock it off, Kim.
Okay, well, hopefully that makes a little bit of a dent in terms of some other people's struggles. Again, we're not telling you how to live in any way, shape, or form, just throwing out our own personal experiences once in a while. Because what I find is once you hear about somebody else's journey and or struggles, it can ping you into terms of like, wow, I kind of do that too. And take what resonates and toss what doesn't, because there's no judgment here. So. Maybe share. We would like to bump our numbers up a little bit. It would be really lovely if you
Really
shared this
nice.
with
Yeah.
somebody.
So
And
subscribe.
subscribe. That would be lovely for us so we can keep going. All right, everyone. Until next time, Cosmic Hugs.
Goodbye.